Welcome back to another episode of Sloppy Saturdays. And we are 2 weeks out from the first set of college football games. And we are going full head on with previews. We are starting our position previews today. We are doing a top 5 list on who I predict will be the top 5 receivers in college football. Now we're going to start off with some honorable mentions. But I think my 5 is the 5 players in college football that are the best receiver no matter which way you put them. If you want to argue with me, comment down below. But this is my list. Now we get into the honorable mentions. The first honorable mention I have is Decorian Moore. Now I'm going to let you guys know now I never put true freshmen on these top position lists just because I want to see something from them in the sport first. We have seen a ton of 5-star complete prospects absolutely bust in the sport of college football. So I never put them on these top lists. Last year I did it, and it absolutely burned me as you had Jeremiah Smith and Ryan Williams, two of the best players in college football. If any year were to burn me in a wide receiver position list, not putting true freshmen in, it was definitely last year. But this year, the honorable mention I have as a true freshman is Decorian Moore. Decorian Moore was the best high school recruit at the receiver position in the country. And I think Decorian Moore has the best opportunity as a freshman out of any freshman in the country. When you look at Decorian Moore, he's going into a top 15 team in the country in Oregon, an Oregon team who definitely has college football playoff hopes. But not only that, an Oregon team that needs a receiver to step up, and I definitely think Decorian Moore can be that. He reminds me a lot of Jackson Smith-Njigba, how he was in college. That's how I think Decorian Moore is going to be. I think he's primarily going to come out of the slot, and I think he's a great route runner that's super explosive. And I think especially for his true freshman year, they should be running him in the slot, giving the most amount of options as a route runner in the slot. Let him get jammed in the outside and let him just get comfortable. But I think Decorian Moore definitely needs to step up for this Oregon team. Luckily for him, this Oregon team has a very high floor. They have one of the easier schedules, in my opinion, in college football, so he could take a little time to develop. But when they play Penn State in the first 5 weeks of the season, that's when he's definitely going to have to step up. That's going to be their biggest game. But again, Decorian Moore, who I think is definitely going to be one of the most explosive receivers in college football from day one. Not only that, has a tremendous opportunity. I didn't put him in my top 5 list, like I said, because we got to see something from him first. But Decorian Moore definitely could be a top 5 receiver by the end of the season. Next guy up, we have Cam Coleman. I think Cam Coleman is an absolute physical freak out of Auburn. He's 6'3", over 200 pounds. He's a super physical receiver. He can play in the slot if you need him to. He now is in Auburn as a sophomore, and Auburn is one of the most improved teams in the country. What they did in the transfer portal, what they did in recruiting, I think they should definitely be improved. I think his quarterback situation should be improved in Jackson Arnold. I think Jackson Arnold will be a lot better than what we saw at Oklahoma. That was a guy that was a highly touted recruit. Now, why Cam Coleman didn't make this list? Again, his stats just weren't there. He had 598 yards, 8 touchdowns, but don't get me wrong, is tremendous as a freshman to be putting up those numbers. But with the 5 people I have on this list, I couldn't put him in. The 5 people I have on this list have a little bit more of a true sample size. That's why I didn't make it. But Cam Coleman, like I said, in an improved offense, I think he's going to be a physical freak at his size and his speed. Watch out for Cam Coleman. And then the last guy we have up is Nick Anderson. The reason why Nick Anderson didn't make the top 5 list is because of injury. He missed all last year because of injury. But when we saw him with Dylan Gabriel in 2023, he was great. I mean, when we look at him, he had over 700 yards. He had double-digit touchdowns, 10 touchdowns. He's an absolute field stretcher. He's a little small. I'm not going to say as a receiver he could do everything on a football field, but he's definitely one of the best field stretchers in college football. He goes into one of the best opportunities of his career. I think the best opportunity, not only it being his last year in college football, he's pairing up with one of the best quarterbacks in the country, Garrett Nussmeier, a quarterback that nobody gives more shots as receivers to. There's going to be a ton of opportunity for Nick Anderson. And he's in a very talented receiving core as well, where it doesn't have to be just him in that offense. Nick Anderson could absolutely explode and definitely be a top 5 receiver this year. Now we get into the 5 receivers that I absolutely love in college football. At number 5, we go with Cardinal Tate. Cardinal Tate is super underrated. When we look at Cardinal Tate, I think he's the second best receiver in the Big Ten Conference. He gets a little overshadowed, obviously, because he played with Jeremiah Smith. And last year, he played an absolutely loaded offense as well. When we look at what they had at the running back position, Quinshon Judkins, Travion Henderson, 2 guys that went in the first 2 rounds of the NFL draft. When we look at him playing with Emeka Egbuka as well, a first-round receiver, now it's his time to take a lot more hold of this offense. I think when Jeremiah Smith is getting doubled now, when he's getting bracketed, Cardinal Tate could absolutely eat. We saw that in a playoff game for Texas. They absolutely bracketed Jeremiah Smith, had a great game plan for him. They had Jahdae Barron, who was one of the best quarterbacks in the country. And as a result, Cardinal Tate ate in the passing game. He had 7 receptions for 87 yards. He did really good. I think Cardinal Tate, again, at 6'3", 195 pounds, he can pretty much do everything, play on the outside, play on the inside. And I think he's really going to feast this year, being an elevated option in this offense, now being that true second option. But not only that, he's going to eat because he has one of the best receivers we've ever seen in college football on the other side as well. Last year had 52 receptions, 733 yards, 4 touchdowns. Not bad for a fourth or fifth option in an offense. This year, like I said, being the second option, he's going to absolutely explode. It all depends as well as how Julian Sain is going to do. But I think Julian Sain is going to be really good. With the weapons Julian Sain has and his talent, I think he's going to be a very good quarterback. But I think Cardinal Tate is absolutely going to explode. I think you're going to see well over 1,000 yards. I think you can see 1,100 yards for Cardinal Tate and at least 8+ touchdowns. I absolutely love it. Him being an elevated option in this Ohio State offense, they're going to need to lean on him more. And a receiver, like I said, at 6'3", that can play pretty much everywhere on the field. I absolutely love it. Cardinal Tate comes in at number 5. At number 4, we have Antonio Williams. Now, Antonio Williams had a great season in college football last year. He's the biggest field stretcher in college football, probably when you look at 5'11", 190 pounds. Definitely not a guy that could really primarily play on the outside like he could, but I like him a lot better in the slot. Again, his speed, you're talking about one of the fastest receivers in college football. Last year had a phenomenal year, 75 receptions, 904 yards, 11 touchdowns. And I think the biggest thing with this Clemson team, like we said time and time again, this Clemson team, not only are they a team with experience, they're a team that's expected to take a huge jump. They were able to hold on to everybody. He plays in a great receiving corps with Wesco as well and a couple of other options. The receiving corps is definitely good, and he plays with one of the best quarterbacks in the country. To some people, the best quarterback in the country, Cade Klubnik. So he's going to have a ton of opportunity as well. When we look at last year, 904 yards, 11 touchdowns. That's a top receiver in college football as it is. So, again, I expect him to take a little bit more of a jump. I expect definitely 1,200 yards. I think he's going to get a lot more chances. And I expect maybe 13, 14 touchdowns from him as well. Again, he's going to really thrive on the deep threat opportunities. He's a field stretcher. He's a guy that is the definition of yak as well. Yards after catch, he definitely could do that too. Antonio Williams, a great receiver. I expect him to be one of the best receivers in the country. He comes in at number 4. At number 3, we have Jordan Tyson on the most underrated team in college football, and he is one of the most underrated players along with his quarterback, Sam Levitt. We have talked about Jordan Tyson time and time again this offseason. Another receiver that could pretty much do everything at 6'2", 200 pounds, could play on the outside, could play in the slot. I love what Arizona State did around him in the receiving room. They bring in receivers with experience, and they also bring in receivers that don't have the experience from huge SEC programs with high upside. So I think the receiving core is going to be pretty good around him, but he's going to be that number 1 option right now. I think it's absolutely insane. He put up 75 receptions for 1,100 yards and 10 touchdowns last year. When you look at Cam Scatterboot, a running back, being the number 1 option in a rush-first offense, you're putting up 1,100 yards and 10 touchdowns. That's absolutely ridiculous. Cam Scatterboot was one of the best running backs in the country, but Jordan Tyson now, he's going to walk into a pass-first offense now, and he has one of the best quarterbacks in the country in Sam Levitt. And why I have Jordan Tyson at 3 as well is I think Jordan Tyson and Sam Levitt are just too good for the Big 12. I said it time and time again. I think Arizona State is going to win that conference. I think Arizona State is a step above everybody in that conference, and it's because of the connection of Sam Levitt and Jordan Tyson, 2 of the best players in college football, playing in the Big 12 time and time again. I get the Big 12 conference when you look at the win totals from the top to the bottom. It's split amongst 3-4 games in the win total. Like, that conference is really tight. But you have 2 guys here that are going to be 2 of the best players in the country. Jordan Tyson is going to be up for the Biletnikoff Award, in my opinion. Like I said, a receiver that could do everything in one of the weaker Power 4 conferences. And Sam Levitt, I think, is going to be up for the Heisman. I think Sam Levitt is absolutely ridiculous. He's playing with one of the best quarterbacks in the country. He's a receiver that could do everything. A receiver with 1,100 yards, double-digit touchdowns. It's just going to absolutely go up from here. I expect 1,400 yards. I expect 15 touchdowns. Jordan Tyson should be in the conversation with a Ryan Williams, with the Jeremiah Smith. Jordan Tyson is the real deal. At number 2, we are going with Ryan Williams. Ryan Williams is probably the most explosive player in college football. I feel like I said that with everybody on the list, but it's really true with Ryan Williams. Ryan Williams is a guy that receives a lot of hate in college football, and I personally don't know why. When we look at Ryan Williams at 17 years old last year, putting up 865 yards, 8 touchdowns, and again, a rush-first offense, and an offense that the consistent passing game was just not there. When you look at Jalen Milroe, for a receiver, one of the worst quarterbacks to have in college football, in my opinion. Again, a guy that's definitely a threat with his legs and a guy that definitely has a good deep ball. But for a consistent pass game, getting your receiver involved, Jalen Milroe was not that for short and intermediate routes. Now Ryan Williams is going to be with Ty Simpson, who I think is a way better system fit for him. I almost said Simpson fit. System fit for him. Ryan Williams, I think, is absolutely going to explode this year. I think he's going to be what everybody wants him to be. For me, he reminds me a lot of Jameson Williams at Alabama, like a guy that doesn't really thrive on a huge amount of receptions a game, but a guy that's just one of the most explosive plays and could really take it to the house on any given play on a football field. Could play on the outside, could play on the inside. I also love what Alabama did being able to retain all the talent around Ryan Williams as well. Ryan Williams is definitely going to be the number one receiver in college football on his team. Like, he's definitely going to be the number one receiver, and I'm just very interested to see who steps up on his offense with him, relying a lot of pressure off him. But Ryan Williams, a 17-year-old, we saw against the Alabama-Georgia game, he was by far the best player on that field. He was able to will them to a win there on one of the biggest stages in college football, arguably the game of the year. So, again, that game is really indicative of what I expect for Ryan Williams to be this season. Like I said, with Ty Simpson, a guy that's a little more accurate, a guy that's definitely a true pocket passer, it's only going to benefit Ryan Williams. I expect Ryan Williams absolute jump. I expect at least 1,300 yards and 10-plus touchdowns. Ryan Williams, again, could contend for the Bill-Endicott Award for sure. And I think upside, everybody loves Jeremiah Smith. They think he's the best receiver to ever play college football already. But Ryan Williams, I think, is right there with him. And upside, I think, could possibly even pass him one day. At 17 years old, this guy's an absolute gift to watch in college football. One of the most explosive, elusive receivers in college football. Sky's the limit for Ryan Williams. And then number one, obviously, Jeremiah Smith, no doubt. Jeremiah Smith reminds me a lot of Julio Jones. When you look at the size combined with the speed, you look at like a Julio Jones, Randy Moss. It's absolutely ridiculous, the names I'm mentioning with a college football sophomore. But Jeremiah Smith is that. I mean, we're looking at one of the best true freshman seasons of all time. In my opinion, what I've watched, probably second to Trevor Lawrence when you talk about true freshman seasons. 76 receptions, 1,300 yards, 15 touchdowns. Absolutely ridiculous. I mean, sky's the limit for Jeremiah Smith. Like I said, very similar to Cardinal Tate, he's going to take even more of a hold of this offense. When we talked about Jeremiah Smith, when he was in the beginning of the season, it said the biggest struggle for him was getting his playbook down. We saw them not go to him nearly as much in the beginning of the season compared to the end, and they were getting the ball to number 4 at the end of the season. We saw him on the biggest stage in the national championship make the biggest play of that entire game. Jeremiah Smith, the best player as a true freshman on a national championship team. Absolutely ridiculous. Sky's the limit for Jeremiah Smith. Like I said, guy that can play all over the field. The size, speed, like a Julio Jones, Randy Moss, like I said. There's not much more to say about Jeremiah Smith. One of the best players we were ever going to see in college football, and he definitely comes in at number 1 on my top 5 receiver list. That wraps up this episode of Sloppy Saturdays. Drop down in the comments below who I possibly missed, who you think is a top 5 receiver that I am sleeping on, and we are out.